Hey, this is Sarah with Strictly Sickly, and we're back today with a friend of mine, John Moore, to talk about autism. And Brad is going to be co-hosting today because Kristen had to work. So say hello, folks.
Hello, folks.
Hi.
Brad's still sniffing the mic covers because he washed them.
They smell like honey and lavender. I like honey and lavender.
Pretty sure mine still smells like belly button.
That's because I rubbed yours on my anus.
Then why would it smell like belly button?
Because my belly button smells like anus. It's a chronic illness. If you knew anything about chronic illness, you would know all about belly button anus.
Okay.
They call it blanus.
I miss Kristen. I thoroughly miss Kristen right now.
I like rum.
But anyway, we're here today with my friend John, who I've known for a long time because, yeah, you kind of tagged along with Allie, and I've known her since I was 20, so forever. But, so let's run through what are your diagnoses.
Well, of course, first and foremost, this episode about my autism. But I also have severe depression, various food allergies. Let's see. Sleep apnea.
Let's see, and you're probably going to need to explain that one.
Sleep apnea?
Hypotnia. Yes.
Hypotnia?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he said sleep apnea.
No, not apnea. Hypotnia.
Let me just do this real quick.
Okay.
There you go.
You couldn't have been, you just said, hey, do that.
Whatever happens.
Sorry. I'm still learning, folks.
It's fine.
Thanks, Ashley.
It's fine. What is that thing you said?
Sleep hypotnia.
Hypotnia.
Okay, so everybody knows sleep apnea. Everybody realizes the sleep apnea. Everybody's heard of that. And that's when you stop breathing when you're sleeping. Sleep hypotnia is when you breathe dangerously shallow when you sleep.
Okay.
So do you do the same, like the CPAP mask is the
Yes,
same?
yes. The treatment is the same.
They just force oxygen into your face, hoping
Yeah.
you don't starve your brain while you're, taking a nap.
Yes, I do have air just shoved.
Did you have to do, so you had to do like a sleep study for all that to find that out or whatever? I mean.
Oh, yeah. And I do not like sleep studies now that I've actually been to one.
I don't know that I could do a sleep study because, they're basically like forcing you to sleep in an uncomfortable place.
Well, that Steven did
Yes.
one, and they had all the monitors attached to him, and he's in this bed that's awful, and he could sleep anywhere, and he could not sleep for his sleep study, and it was a nightmare.
Because there's people like watching him.
Well, they had a camera in the corner, but he said just all the instrumentation that's attached to you, and it's weird, and there's people just waiting for you to sleep, and I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, I went to this place in North Richmond Hills. They had these rooms that basically just look like hotel rooms. That's really all they were. They had a TV, a big clock, a bed,
Fancy.
yeah.
Maybe it wasn't a sleep study. It's just somebody had some, weird voyeur fetish. He's like, yeah, come on in and do a sleep study.
And they had to attach all those wires to my head, and
Yeah.
I really hate that part of the sleep study where you wake up with a finger in your butthole. It's the worst.
I know you also have food allergies and such, food intolerances.
yes, I have food allergies of like 95% of a store.
Yeah.
I am allergic to red meat, wheat, corn, casein, which, if you don't know what casein is a protein in mammary milk, which is often confused with lactose intolerance, which, no.
Yeah.
I can't even have that lactose cheese.
Yeah, I've seen casein-free foods, like when I go to the hippie store in Cleburne.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody being allergic to red meat before.
So you can be allergic to anything.
I guess so. I mean, I guess it's like an enzyme that's in red meat or whatever that you
Correct.
can't have.
There's literally people who are allergic to water and the sun.
What?
Yeah. You're talking about what, Shear's disease?
No,
or-
and that's not a real thing. That's from Vampire the Masquerade.
Shut up. That's what I know it as.
It's porphyria. But no, sun allergy is when you go out in the sun and it gives you hives. Porphyria is where it kills off your red blood cells.
Maybe I'm allergic to sunlight because every time I go out in the sun and it's hot outside, I sneeze.
So what can you eat?
Almost nothing.
Almost nothing.
Yeah, what does your... Well, I mean, that's a good question. Like, with that many food allergies, what does your diet actually consist of?
It consists of a lot of rice.
I would die. I would just kill myself.
People always say that, dude. I had just celiac disease, or I thought I did, and people are like, "I'd kill myself." I'm like, "No, you just suck it up and eat the food."
The only rice I like is fried.
But then again, my mother has recently this past summer has gone on that keto diet thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, that would be hard as hell for you since you can't have red meat. like most of the keto or Atkins diet or anything where it's like high protein, low everything else delicious is, it's like, oh, just eat steaks 3 meals a day and suck it up.
And she doesn't realize that keto diet has absolutely no scientific basis behind it whatsoever.
Well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It does if you actually follow the actual original diet, which is a lot of vegetables.
Yeah,
and
it's,
meat.
it's supposed
Instead
to
of
still be
the-
a balanced diet.
Instead of the thing where people are just shoving bacon in their faces and they're like, "I'm going to lose weight."
I mean, the thing is you're supposed to force your body into ketosis, which is a thing, and then
It's a thing that's not good for you.
Yeah, which is not healthy whatsoever.
No, they've actually done it. I could argue this all day. They've done extended studies of people that have been in ketosis for long periods of time. It's when you go into ketoacidosis that it's actually bad for you.
Also is not good for you.
But ketosis does not put you into ketoacidosis. They're two different things.
I know. Ketoacidosis is a diabetic issue that makes your breath smell delightfully fruity. But ketosis stresses your organs. But anyway, that's not the point of the show, Bradley.
I want to know the
Bradley.
secrets to losing weight so I can also be a gentle giant.
If you want to know the secrets into losing weight, you eat less calories than you put out.
Okay, Miss PCOS, and
Unless-
and half your fucking viewership here. just all you gotta, Sarah said, all you gotta do is eat less and work out more, and then you can lose weight.
Do you have a thyroid problem?
Yes,
Oh, well, then I'm sorry, you're screwed. You're fat.
suck it.
That is how you live your life now. You're going to be fat. Learn to love it.
Yeah, so my meat mostly consists of chicken.
Rice, chicken.
What about like vegetables and nightshades like potatoes? And
The only vegetable that I am allergic to is corn.
Which is hilarious because it's like one of the few vegetables that your body won't freaking digest. It always comes out looking the
And
same
it's-
as it went in.
And apparently it's everywhere.
yeah.
Sometimes you don't realize just how everywhere a food is until you're allergic to it.
Because I know a lot of people with celiac disease also have multiple food issues. So I'd be in some of those
Yeah.
groups. They're like, I can't have corn, casein, lactose, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you are screwed. Because
Yeah.
you start reading labels and just everything is in everything.
Well, shit, with your gastrophoresis on top of when you were supposedly had celiac disease, when you were diagnosed with celiac disease, basically your diet just consisted of one specific brand of breakfast shake.
Yeah.
Like
the ones that weren't milk.
Yeah.
But I'm so glad I don't actually have those things they thought I had because, man, it is just rough finding food and you can't go out. I've noticed that it killed a lot of social stuff because people don't want to go out to eat with you. Not that I like going out to eat with people particularly, but
But a lot of socialization happens over the dinner table
and
is the thing.
people are really uncomfortable with you saying, well, I'm just not going to eat. It like weirds people out.
Well, my allergies really isn't I have it and then instant reaction. It's not that kind of allergy. It's more of the more I have of it, the worse
Sicker
my
you
symptoms. Yeah, it's it's kind of like nasal allergies. The worse pollen gets, the worse you're sneezing and running nose.
Yeah,
gets.
it's not like people with like a shellfish allergy where your like
Yeah,
face swells
it's not
up or whatever.
anaphylaxis. It's yeah.
Yeah, so like I can have a little, I can have, I'm totally fine having a sandwich every now and then.
That's good because otherwise that'd be insanity inducing.
And rice bread really sucks.
Yeah.
Have you ever had rice bread?
No, because my body doesn't suck like yours, so I don't force myself to do these horrible fucking
I've
things.
had rice bread. I was not a fan. I've tried a couple different kinds of bread, and really most of them I didn't.
I hated every gluten-free bread that you ever brought over. Just tasted like cardboard.
Oh, they're all just awful.
Well, the taste wasn't so bad. It was more of the texture. And the ability of not actually staying together.
Yeah.
You pick it up and half the bread falls off onto the plate.
Potato bread. The problem with most potato bread, Ashley, and interestingly enough, is they still make it with wheat.
Yeah, it's just potato is an additive, and it's not like
Yeah.
it's replacing.
So you have
I
to
love
find-
potato bread just because it's delicious.
Yeah, I like potato bread, but you have to specifically find a potato bread that's not made with gluten because gluten is what makes everything stick together.
Anytime you try to make bread not bread, you're failing. It's unless it's a tortilla, and then it's a tortilla.
But I'm allergic to that too.
God, dude. Your existence is slow and painful.
Well, see, the flour tortilla, that's wheat. And then the corn tortilla, that's corn. I'm allergic to both
So
those.
I'm admittedly fat because I love food. And the thing is, if I had that many food allergies, I'd just be like, I can't wait till I'm 102 so I can die.
Now, I did find a tortilla, though, that I can have.
Oh, really?
It is a potato tortilla. But they are...
Tater tia.
Yeah, tater tortilla. But it is extremely flimsy.
Yeah.
I normally have to... I normally have to have a normal taco. I have to have, like, 5 potato tortillas.
Layer them up. Make one street taco.
That's awesome.
Because, like...
His tortillas are 2-ply.
at least 5. Because if you just take a normal potato tortilla and you hold it up, you can breathe through it and then it'll fall apart.
But I guess we'll start with the autism thing. So I guess the first question is, what actually is autism? I figure most people know, but
I'm actually curious what the legit definition for autism is.
Actually, you'd be surprised how many people are quite off of what autism actually is.
okay, well, because the next question is autism versus Asperger's. So if you want to run those two together, or
Yes. Okay, so autism is a development disorder of your brain not being wired correctly. Or having difficulties gauging how sensitive a portion of the brain should be.
Okay, so like when you say like not wired correctly, like you mean like sensory input or do you mean more like cognitive functions?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah, the way I understand, it's
So-
all of
so
it,
in-
sensory input, cognitive function. It's all just wired slightly differently,
Okay.
or a lot differently, depending on how.
So basically your brain is processing the same things that my brain is processing, just differently.
Correct.
It takes in all the same input, but it doesn't give the same results
Yes.
to you.
Dana says her brother has Asperger's.
Okay. So for our brains have these little nodes in them. A lot of people call them neurons.
Neurotransmitters.
And then the pathways in between them, the synapses.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And each one of those pathways, each one of those neurons also has a kind of like a volume switch, a volume dial.
Okay, that's a good analogy. I like that.
Each pathway in each neuron has their own dial.
Right.
Okay, so what happens with a lot of autistic people when it comes to their problems with sensory input, for example, which is extremely common. Most people's brains can determine, okay, so here's where the dial should generally sit, and it stays there.
Okay.
All right. With an autistic person, that dial doesn't know where to sit exactly, so it'll either sit at all the way up or all the way down.
So like my kids are very opposite. If the bell goes off in school, my son's gonna do the childhood autistic scream until it's over. The teacher has to put headphones in. Now my daughter, she seeks sensory stimulation to the point where she's so rough and she needs everything at and I'm not sure if either of them are on the spectrum. I think they more have sensory issues, but it's just like their dials are set at opposite ends.
That's weird. I never actually thought about that because most of the time when you think of people that are atypical or not neurotypical or have autism, you think of people that have more what Andrew has, where like loud noises and stuff like that bother him. I never thought about it being the other way, where like they don't get enough sensory input, so they watch like the ASMR videos and stuff like that.
And that's why the hugging machine, like the tight hugging or thing, can be calming, or like the weighted blankets,
right?
Because I know some are sensory seekers and some are off put by
right.
And my kids just happen to be on the opposite ends of those spectrums, which just leads for great just car rides.
We'll see. At first, when we're little, all those sensors are actually turned all the way up when it comes to autism. It's how we grow up around those things that will determine if they stay up or if they're turned off.
That explains a lot.
That's from a test back in 2011. Because at first we thought it was just naturally up or down, but we've actually figured out that it's at first naturally all the way up, and then depending on the environment, the brain will either shut it down or it doesn't come across the stimulation enough to warrant it to turn off.
And that's also a good point. I know with like normal people, I know this from the
Normal people.
I
know, I'm just making fun of you.
Yeah, I didn't mean it that way.
I doubt he cares.
The neurotypicals.
The neurotypicals or whatever. But I know in a standard study from the tests we do with NT Paranormal, that if your brain gets the same stimuli over and over and over again, it'll shut it out. That's why people don't remember the drive home and stuff like that. And I think I read somewhere that in a lot of non-neurotypical brains, that function doesn't work like ever. So they are constantly receiving that input data all the time, and their brain doesn't filter out the extra stuff. Do you notice that with you at all?
Yeah. I have periods where sometimes I can't remember the last 5 minutes. Like all of a sudden, like it's like, wait, what was I just doing?
Right.
And there will be signs that I would be having done something that I don't remember doing it.
Right, because you've just completely blanked out on it and gone into like automatic mode.
Like there could be a plate of food in front of me, and like one moment, okay, plate of food. Next moment, where the hell did it go?
What did I do with that? I lost a burrito that way once, and I blame. Man, my divorce might be because of that. Because I blamed my wife for 4 years over that burrito, and it turned out I just ate it in the middle of the night. When and how were you?
Hold on, I got a few more questions on the first one. Okay, so. Sorry, autism versus where do you sit on the spectrum? Like, okay, autism versus Asperger's. Isn't the way I understand it is Asperger's is the word we use for less severe, or it's the colloquial term we use for less severe.
Asperger's is no longer an actual diagnosis. It is no longer official diagnosis as of last year.
Okay.
Because of the 2011 study. They're having to go back and reassess all the different versions of autism. And it's not a diagnosis as of last year in the American the DSM.
Yeah.
In the international version, they're taking it out next year. Because of the reassessment.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, Asperger's is no longer a actual diagnosis.
So it sounds like what they're doing is they're basically putting it all under one heading, and it's just like where on the spectrum that you are.
At the moment, if you go get a new diagnosis of autism, it will just be diagnosed as autism spectrum disorder, and then they'll list details.
What is the latest DSM? Do you know? Was it 5 before?
No, it's currently DSM-5.
It's currently DSM-5. Okay, because Ashley was asking.
5th edition. That's where they've switched to bigger D20s. No. Now you can roll 2 D20s and take that. Sorry.
Nerd.
When were you officially diagnosed, and how? Why would you give me question 3 and then ask 6 questions?
Anyway, you're obviously high functioning, so I mean,
Depends on the day.
But I'm not.
You're,
Apparently.
for social interaction.
That depends on the day.
Okay. So is that another thing that, like, I mean, like, it'd be like depression or anything where it can change day by day. I mean, like any chronic illness. On any given day, I feel differently. I can do different things.
Well, on top of that, I'm comfortable around y'all. This would be a completely different show if it was a completely random person that asked me on their show. It would be a completely different show. I would not be as open.
Good to know.
In fact, when I'm not as comfortable, my brain actually attempts to shut off my speech centers. And I literally cannot talk.
I mean, that's something I know can happen to autistic people, which I know it makes people around them like really uncomfortable, like how to communicate. But the problem is they just keep trying to get them to say something, so they're just making it worse.
Yes.
By repeatedly
Yes.
asking them to answer questions or interact when they literally can't.
So when I have that speech shut down, I can push to simple short sentences, but I can't really articulate very well, which annoys the hell out of my mother because I often go into that when I'm talking to her.
Yeah, I think my mom would drive me into that mode, but okay, now. Sorry. Question 3, Brad.
Are we sure?
We're sure.
Maybe.
I threw the card away. There we go.
We're not ready.
When did you get your diagnosis, and what was that process like?
All right, so my diagnosis was in. I actually have that right here. Was in 2016. It was 2 different days. One day in July, one day in August. It was a fairly lengthy process. Each day took about 5 hours.
What did they do? Just like, I mean, like, what was the testing process? I mean, I'm just curious. Like, did they make you take like written tests and just ask a bunch of questions, or?
I went through the bare minimum test.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, the 8 to 12 hour test is a minimal test to have a definitive.
12. Jesus Christ.
Well, because I remember when they came over to assess Caitlin, she was only 18 months old, and because she was nonverbal, they wanted to assess her. They ended up being there for almost 5 hours.
That sounds like the test. If you can sit through it for 12 hours.
And they went ahead and said they weren't going to come back the next day because they didn't think she had. But they said normally that process took a long time. But they said because of her age and because of the way she'd done on the first day,
Yes,
they didn't.
Before age 5, it is extremely difficult to make an accurate assessment.
Yeah, I was like, maybe she's nonverbal because she's a baby.
Your 8-month baby doesn't seem to talk very much. All I can say is blah, 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 blah.
But I would assume that a lot of it's like almost like seeing a psychologist.
Yes. Yeah. Two different doctors actually. There was this husband-wife team of psychology. The husband did more of the assessment tests that, that you would normally see, and his wife is more of the classical lay on the couch and tell me about your feelings kind of psychologist.
Ah, okay.
So, so the first go around was the husband, and that's when he put me through all of the different tests. There was like he gave me these blocks that each had each side was either white or red, and sometimes there was like a white red with a diagonal cut in it, separating the colors. And he would show me different pictures, like make this picture.
So they're testing his problem solving ability with that.
Yeah, and then like there was another thing that he flipped me through a picture book and asked me to describe what was going on. And various tests like that. Like I said, it went on for like 5 hours or so of doing stuff like that. And yeah, there was a written test for vocabulary and logical solving and stuff like that. Those tests I came out above average.
Well, because you're a very intelligent person. I know your problem solving ability is like off the charts. I mean, it's if I set like mathematical problems in front of you or visual puzzles or anything like that, you're not going to have any deficit in that whatsoever. So,
which is why my mother comes to me every time there's a problem.
Right. And so I imagine you're.
Come fix this.
I imagine you're. At least as good as me or above me as far as like problem solving ability. I imagine a lot of like the questions and stuff were like, how does this make you feel in like present situations, and like how does this situation make you feel, sort of thing like that.
Yeah. The second day, which happened like 2-3 weeks afterwards, was a bunch of talking. We went through. She asked me about my past, how certain things that I said how certain things made me feel about my past, and stuff like that. It's a freaking like 12-page report.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, like it sounds really extensive and overblown a bit. On the other hand, at least it's thorough, that we're not just handing out like a false diagnosis or what. It's like they're really trying to make sure.
Yeah.
That was the minimal test.
Right.
Allie says I tried to get him to do my math a lot when we were kids.
Who didn't?
When you got the diagnosis back, like did it make sense to you? Did it make things just kind of like click after that?
Yes. Everything made sense to me. My mother kept on trying to push him to get a little bit faster, but the results have to be written out in a way that a non-psychologist can read them.
Yeah, that makes
Well,
makes sense.
A lot of people are going to end up using that for a disability claim too, aren't they?
Yes, you would hand it to a judge and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
so the diagnosis has to be written out in a way that a non-psychologist, a non-doctor can read it.
Yeah.
So like there was a couple of times that Mom called him and asked him, if it's done yet, and he one time he actually told her that it is currently technically finished right now, but it's not in layman terms.
Yeah. So hold your horses.
Yeah, let me do my job.
But yeah, there's been like diagnoses like that for me where it comes along and all of a sudden things just kind of click and I'm like, oh, that explains so freaking much that I was just so confused about before.
So, that is something you can collect like disability for?
Yes.
Depending on the severity, I guess.
The unemployment rate with autism is huge.
Right.
It's because a lot of workspaces we can't have a certain a certain sensory input. Now, mine wasn't as severe when I was younger, and that's because the synapses in the neurons from age 5 to about age 24, you actually, your brain is still developing until about age 24.
Right.
So my kids might still get better, is what you're.
Or worse.
Yeah, I'm mostly joking about my kids, y'all. I do have some suspicions that one of them might be on the spectrum.
I
but-
definitely think they're on the spectrum. I don't, but I definitely think they're like on the
Very
the
low.
the like high functioning, the extremely high functioning part
They're
of the
high
spectrum.
functioning enough that everyone thinks it's a discipline problem.
Yeah, I mean,
You just don't beat your kids enough. That's why he just screams when there's loud noises. I'm like, I'm pretty sure if I beat him, that would not help this screaming situation. I'm just saying. Do you think beating? I mean, I don't
eventually children run out of screams if you beat them enough.
I just don't think that's something you can program your kids out. Like when Caitlin was little, I didn't know she had ADHD. I thought she was just being a brat, and that was nothing I could discipline away. And I feel like a lot of parents do try to discipline these things away, especially if their kids are high functioning.
So she can get better, can get worse, because between those ages, you lose 75% of your neurons.
That's why adults learn so much slowly. Yeah, Alex says that makes sense. Some severe mental illnesses and such rear their heads in their 20s. Yeah, early 20s is usually when.
Or 30s if you're me.
But like, unless it's a childhood onset like schizophrenia or depression or anxiety, usually it's your early 20s when it might have already kicked in, but when it really starts to make things rough.
Oh yeah,
I think it's
I totally forgot about that one. I do have audio schizophrenia.
So like hearing.
Yes, I hear things. Sometimes
Oh, shut up. I have a couple friends with schizophrenia, so.
sometimes I have to get up and actually see if somebody is actually there or not.
So you would be bad for ghost hunting, is what you're saying.
Sounds,
Or maybe you'd be really good for ghost hunting.
I hear a voice and everybody's like,
I would say, depending on your outlook on there, I could be the one hearing the ghosts.
Synaptic pruning.
I think a lot of that stuff actually shows itself like around puberty when your hormones and stuff start changing. But I think that stuff gets noticed more as you become 20 because like you kind of start to get your head back, and that's when you're noticing like something's wrong. Because I think when you're in those teenage years, everybody's like, it's just
a lot of
hormones
stuff
sort
with
of
Caitlin,
thing.
I go, oh, it's because she's about to be 13.
Yeah.
Those hormones really send you through.
Well, how are you going to tell puberty from
Crazy?
from crazy? Because
You
it's
can't.
practically the same thing, and it's
It is
the
exactly the same thing.
and then you get to go, and if you're a woman, you get the joy of going through it again later in life at round 2, menopause.
Yeah.
Menopause, puberty part 2.
With Caitlin, think of it this way: a woman stops puberty at about age 16, 17.
So you've only got a few more years.
Though guys, on the other hand, won't stop puberty till about age 21.
58.
Was that if you Google when men reach emotional maturity, Google literally says 42. Like it has a dead ass, you just want answer, 42. I thought they were joking and I Googled it and I was like,
Did Douglas Adams write that entry? The secret to
life and everything
yeah.
is 42.
42.
Some people believe that schizophrenia is a shamanistic situation. A lot of people think that schizophrenia is paranormal. I've noticed.
I've noticed a lot of people with schizophrenia call me to tell me about their alien abductions and stuff too.
Oh yeah, he did get this lady on the phone that was.
For
She wasn't
months.
just schizophrenic. She was like the classic paranoid schizophrenic.
Like she was hard.
The CIA was
core.
monitoring her, and we were going to help her with that somehow.
No, I'm not like that.
Yeah, just-
usually it's just friends' voices and sometimes radio.
I think the clinical term for this lady was batshit. She would call me every single night to tell me, she's like, all right, is the government listening to this call? I'm like, no, the government doesn't care about my phone. And she's like, well, I'm doing these paintings of the aliens that abduct me, and I don't want them to know about these paintings. I'm like, Jesus Christ, lady.
But
I gave her Rose's number.
I think, but that's a problem for a lot of people. I know with like milder schizophrenia, like John here with the audio version, or I've got another friend that has audio. He's got voices in his head. Basically, is the common term would be
Right. And it is more common than people think, and that's one of the reasons why in the paranormal investigation we're more focused on getting the physical evidence. Like if we think we're hearing voices, and then we record it.
Yeah.
Then it's more valid. But the personal experience is valid thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the person having a personal experience could be John.
I also think that it makes it harder for people with schizophrenia because people assume it's crazy, violent, scary.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I'm not going to go on a tangent about it, but that's the other angle that we take within the paranormal is that we accept that some people could be, have depression or be mentally ill, but why couldn't paranormal things happen to them?
Sure.
So, like, if something legitimately paranormal was happening to John, how would you know the difference between that and just, the voices you hear occasionally sometimes? And so I think those people get screwed over a lot. People just and back to the theme of the show is people are just going to automatically tune out and discount anything you say that's just out that doesn't fit in their box of what they think is normal.
Yeah.
So you just kind of get overlooked on a lot of things. See how I brought it back in?
So how did you seek out this diagnosis? Like if I had an adult friend who maybe thought they were autistic, how would you go about?
Well, I didn't really think about autism itself until it was brought up by a doctor. So I think it would be up to a professional of some sort.
Yeah. So like if they wanted to go see a psychologist or something, just, hey, I think there might be something a little off.
Well, I mean, but that's a good question. Like, what made you think to? What made you even want to go do that? Was it a doctor's suggestion? Or were you already kind of thinking it? I'm just kind of curious, what the process was of I'm gonna go to a doctor and get checked for this.
Well, way back when, I was seeing for depression. I was seeing this psychiatrist, which I now know is just a pill pusher. At least that one specifically, anyway.
So many of them tend to be.
Yeah. And then he happened to get a, we call it one of those student psychiatrists that go work in psychiatrist offices.
Yeah.
And she actually cared about what she was doing.
I have more luck with PAs and student doctors than
residents, the people that aren't burned out or have an agenda.
Yeah, I mean, people that are still working towards, actually becoming doctors.
People that still want to help people when they started.
Yeah, they're just not disillusioned yet.
Yeah. But, so she just was like, hey, maybe you're...
She suggested that there may be some more going on. And then my primary kind of set me on that path to eventually find out. I don't remember specifics exactly.
Good enough for me. Now, this next one's kind of a broad question. So, how do you think being undiagnosed throughout your childhood, teen years, early adult years affected your life, your friendships, your family relationships, your romantic relationships, your school life? I mean, just everything.
Well, I thought it was bonkers.
And I mean, if other people don't know too that you have an official diagnosis, they're probably bound to treat you like you're bonkers, because there's no answer for it, for why you do the things you do.
I mean, yeah, back in the 90s, autism wasn't a big thing.
Real quick, how old are you? Because I know you're a lot younger than me.
I'm younger than you?
I think so, yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, how old are you?
32.
32? Oh, you're only a year younger than me. Okay. I thought you were. I don't know why I thought you were a lot younger than me. 32. Okay.
There are 9 days difference between me and Allie.
Okay. Because no, I'm 33. Yeah, I'm an 85 baby. So we grew up at the same time. I was just curious. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. In the 90s.
Yes, in the 90s. Yeah. In the late 90s, there wasn't a whole lot known about autism just yet. And in fact, a lot of people back then were sometimes diagnosed with retardations, or as in the more common ADD or ADHD back then sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you think back then, if you would have had a diagnosis sooner, like when you were a kid, do you think it would have changed like the way you grew up or the way you did things back then? I mean that might be a better way to phrase the question. Did like if you would have had an earlier diagnosis and grew up knowing that this was a thing.
Real quick, Allie says it was really hard to tell a joke because he was always so literal. Which is a very big symptom of autism, is being super literal and having hard times with sarcasm.
I don't understand.
Robotic.
I'll kill you, Brad.
A lot of us do seem quite robotic sometimes. If the mood itself isn't known right then to be a more playful mood at that moment, then yes, it would be really hard for us to actually pick up on a joke. Like a random joke just isn't going to work with an autistic person. It just isn't.
Good to know. But so do you think? I mean, an earlier diagnosis would have changed. I mean, changed things in how much?
Well, maybe because I didn't grow up in a normal household.
Yeah, I know some things about your child, like and your mom, and the things she does with.
Yeah, we had a lot of fostering and adopting of children of various medical histories, and so I think with all the other extreme stuff going around in my household. That was probably even more easily overlooked.
Because I'm not sure Allie warned me, like the first time I visited, she did not tell me anything. So I just walk into this house where her family lives and all this stuff starts going. And I'm like, Allie, you've got to, like, I love you and I'm not going to treat anyone like they're different, but you should probably say, hey, you may see some interesting things if you come over. You probably shouldn't stare.
Yeah, I didn't get the rundown either.
Yeah, no, there was no rundown. I think she likes doing that for fun. She's just like, hey, come over and visit.
She's like, hey, we're going over to Colleen's. And I'm like, it's Lord of the Flies.
Well, we're used to it, so sometimes it kind of like leaves our head.
You walk in, there's a breathing machine in the corner. Immediately, you're... What's happening?
When I believe, and then Richard walked in.
Oh, yes, that's sometimes quite a shock.
And I believe he got a kick out of my reaction.
Right.
He was quite amused by...
Oh, yes, Richard loves that. It's hilarious to him.
I was driving him to school for a little while when we were both going to the campus in Cleveland, and he was just so amused sometimes by the way people
You need to fill the crowd in on what's going on.
Oh, yes.
He's a burn victim.
Richard is a burn victim, but a heavily burned victim.
It's like 90% of his body, right?
About 85.
85, yeah.
85. It's enough.
85 before the surgeries.
Yeah.
I mean, it's less now, but you really can't do much with the face.
Right.
Yeah, and I remember because Caitlin met him when she was real young, and I was so stressed about that meeting because I was like, I know she was going to say something awful, and Richard was just like, it's cool. He was like, it's just whatever.
Yeah.
It'll probably be funny. I was like, okay, you're cool, dude. Just
Yeah, like after one of his surgeries, they took skin from his back, and so he now has this large strip down his back, one side of the back, from the surgery. So for a while, we were calling him Skid Row.
Steven refers to him as refried beans. We sound like awful people.
The thing is when you're friends with people with illnesses and disabilities and things like that, people know like people like that, they know when you're doing stuff out of love
Yeah.
as opposed to actual hatefulness. There's a complete difference.
And when you have to joke, because if you're serious about it all the time, you will go crazy.
Yeah, Richard would actually probably be a good person to have on the show.
Yeah, he would.
Actually, because he's undergone so many surgeries
Yeah.
and
His own filing cabinet.
yeah,
Yeah, he's.
We lost count somewhere around 200.
that's an entire household of people
Yeah.
that could be on your show.
So, I mean, do you think it was over? I mean, obviously, it was a little overlooked because of all the stuff going on in. I mean, everyone else has these crazy things going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say you might be one of the more normal people of your household. You
yeah,
know, like your sensory and social challenges are like the least of everybody's worries in that house.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you know, nobody's really looking at it.
Yeah, nobody's paying attention to the autistic guy.
It's like, oh, he's just being quiet in the corner. You
Yeah.
know, what a good boy. It's-
And Mom actually used to tell me, he's like, apparently I was the easiest baby in the damn world. Apparently I didn't want to be held.
I think I need to be checked.
I would say, yeah, my daughter was like the easiest because she hated being swaddled. She didn't want to be held too much. She didn't want too much interaction. And I always thought, what a great baby! Like,
Put me in the crib with
It's-
some baby toys.
yeah, she just wanted to be put down and she wanted to chill on her own. And I was like, this is so easy. And now I'm looking back, going, oh, I overlooked some things.
That was the eye of the storm.
Yeah, my whole family is a medical carnival.
that our family is either in our family you're either professionally some kind of medical professional or somehow you're driving some kind of big truck, whether it be a trash truck, getting propane, whatever.
But I think you have the next.
How does autism affect your current friendships and romantic relationships?
The current friendships, usually as soon after I warm up to people, because before I warm up to you, I'm usually really quiet. But I've gotten into the habit of telling people that I'm autistic, and so they have the general idea, like I have to watch out. You know, they have to watch out about some things.
Yeah.
And then we just kind of run into the specifics as we go. As for romantic relationships, if there were any,
Do you find it more? Do you find it more difficult to engage in a romantic relationship or find one? I mean, is it a handicap to it?
I think so. But then again, a lot of the things that I could equate to that could be just equated to almost any introverted person.
Right. Yeah. You're just not great at social interaction with people that you don't already know or you're not comfortable with. So I'd imagine like when you do date or you're in a relationship, it's with somebody you've been friends with for a while.
Yeah,
Anyway, you're never gonna like go on Tinder and just meet somebody random.
Now, I have done that to talk to people before a couple times, a few of those websites and apps. But as far as an actual relationship, no, not really, no.
Do you find like online relationships easier for you?
I mean, I've only had like one or two, so I mean.
Oh, I know some people they have an easier time talking to others online, like first, like
Yeah.
like in chat, you get to know somebody through a chat room or through Messenger or something like that, and then eventually, they transition, and it's easier for them that way. Some people, like me, I mean, I don't have a problem either way, but I would prefer to meet somebody in person for the first couple of times, like somebody.
See, I'm an online person.
I'm not
People
real,
scare me.
I'm not real personable online. Like
you're real personable in real life.
I can fake being human better. Face to face, I can fake it better because I can read somebody's body language or how they're talking to me.
Yeah.
And so I have a more adaptable personality, and so like I can read those situations better, but. I imagine somebody that has problems with that has an easier time just being literal and talking in like text format or whatever, which I also enjoy because I can say more precise things that I'm trying to get across that way, but it's not the same type of interaction.
That actually reminds me of this little debate I had online a couple weeks ago. In one of my more adult groups that you know, you don't have to restrict your language.
Yeah.
Well, I can find somebody more attractive the more I know them.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, I'm that way too. That's
so the visual for me isn't really all that important, and I've come to realize that. You know, if I don't find somebody immediately visually attractive, if I get to know them, you know, that score is going to go up or down sometimes.
well, and I already know the answer to this question because I've known you for a while. But Ashley asks, "Are you interested in romantic or sexual relationships? Like, are you asexual or aromantic?"
Well, define what you mean by a romantic one,
Like,
because sometimes that can change depending on the person.
well, I would think, are you interested in the whole dating, cuddling, hanging out, watching movies, maybe moving in with, you know, having the relationship aspect as opposed to just sex?
Not necessarily the cuddling, but you know, 'cause I'm not much of a cuddler. At all.
I believe that's demisexual, where you find someone more attractive based on their personality, and like you're probably not going to be sexually attracted to somebody unless you know them enough to know if they're, you know, an idiot or not.
Yeah. If someone's characteristics make them out to be a total jerk or a bitch, then no. It isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
At all. I don't care how hot you are.
Do you think autism is underdiagnosed in adults?
Now you're cutting into my question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I apologize.
Do you want me to ask these in the order that you, the host, has presented?
I did not know.
How about you ask number 8?
How about I kick you?
What do you want people to understand the most about you?
That I have abnormal views. Like, for example, I'm sure y'all can understand this one. At least you two, like, poly relationships are definitely not the norm.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Typical. I got yelled at for that earlier. They're atypical. What?
So,
But no, monogamy is the norm.
yeah.
So it's the socially accepted standard.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like sometimes in groups, I'll see some of those debating things about cheating. Mm-hmm. I'm like, for me, it's only cheating when it's being hidden and lied about.
Yeah.
Non-consensual, yeah.
Which I think is the perfect definition of cheating. Because
Yeah.
if the person knows about it, how's it cheating? But people do. I've seen people argue that even if it's consensual, it's still cheating.
No. Yeah, we have that argument all the time. Not me and you, but I mean, we have that argument with other people
yeah.
all the time. It's, and we also have to argue you can cheat in a poly relationship as well.
Yeah, that's totally possible.
If you're being shisty, yeah. I got a weird kind of throwaway question. Do you think autistic people are more or less likely to be religious? Because I've noticed that most autistic people I know are non-religious, and I think it's because they tend to think about things more logically.
We tend to be more less in the middle of the road, because I have run into religious autistics, and there's pretty much nothing that can change their mind about that there is a God or not.
Well, maybe it depends on if that routine helps them in their day to day. Because a lot of religions are about routine and the ritual and stuff like that. So it would fit a lot with that lifestyle, depending where they are on the spectrum.
Because we are very routine.
It was just something else I noticed that could be considered you're talking about having alternate viewpoints. That would be an alternate viewpoint that I guess that's maybe my autistic friends in specific or less likely to be.
It might be the circles we hang out in.
Well, that was just a specific. I mean, like for another example, no matter the subject, I can separate reality from fantasy world. Okay, no matter the subject, doesn't matter what you can think about. I can separate reality from fantasy. Okay. No matter how heated the subject is.
Yeah.
And a very few people, many people can do that to a degree.
Allie. Allie said religious autistics, the Republican Party.
That's offensive, ma'am.
Oh my God! Wow.
Allie, you're put on a 10-minute timeout.
Oh, insta ban. Damn. Not making our case, hon.
I imagine also you'd be good at debating because you can separate out logical from emotional
Yes, I can.
argument. Yeah, that's a fantasy
easily.
versus.
Easily.
Yeah.
I can easily do that.
Is it that you can separate it out, or do you have a choice in separating it? Is it just separate for you?
Reality and factual reality are completely separate to me. Trying not to bring up an example that is too controversial.
Oh,
We don't care.
Just go ahead.
Where do you think you're at? Like, I'm just full of rage about the fact that Millennial Monopoly came out the other day, and the tagline for it is,
I love it.
Hey, did you see that post?
I
think
love
it's
it.
hysterical.
It's forget real estate. You can't afford it anyway.
Well, that's factually accurate.
It's factually accurate, but I don't think it's very fucking cute.
I found it hilarious as soon as I actually saw that, because at first I just saw the Millennial Monopoly. I'm like, okay, cool, and then another separate other post actually zoomed in on the quote line.
Yeah. And I don't even know why. Like, I'm a millennial, but I don't know why I'm that mad at it, because none of it applies to me. Like I'm a homeowner. I've got a good job. Like, I'm the opposite end of the spectrum of this entire podcast. It's like I don't have the same problems. I just am around people that have these problems.
You're atypical.
Yes.
God damn it. So
Fantasy from fact, I believe, is
I'm just full of rage. I can't separate
where we
shit
were
right now.
in trying to come up with a not too controversial.
Oh
answer
yeah.
that we don't care if it's
What was your topic?
Okay, taking it a small step forward, is like, for example, sadism. Hurting people for enjoyment.
Yeah.
Sadism, that's the side of the person that's doing the hurting, right?
Yeah, that's a sadist is like the opposite of a masochist.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
The masochist is the sadist is hurting the masochist.
Okay.
And I'm a sadist, but I would never actually hurt anybody, like in real life. Like,
Well,
ever.
right. You participate in consensual sadism, which
Yes.
is different than somebody that just goes around assaulting people.
Yeah, that's not sadism. That's just abuse.
Yeah,
and and then there are some things where I know it can never actually be a reality, because if I even attempted that would disgust me example, I'm a furry, for example.
Okay.
And a lot of people think that furries want to do animals. I'm like,
No.
there are a small section of us that do, but most of us can separate reality from fiction.
Yeah, where you're in a suit and not
Well,
actually an animal.
And that's where you got to go, where you have to judge everybody. First off, you shouldn't be judging anybody, but you have to take the individual, not the group.
Yeah.
Every time he says he's a furry, he may not be like every other furry. He might have his own set. And you said there's some that do want to have intercourse with animals. Well, that's a few individuals. That's like saying all gay people are child molesters. That's not even remotely close to true.
Yeah, so something can be.
That's like saying all men are cheaters. That's not.
Yeah, so something can be pleasurable in your head, but be disgusting in real life.
Yeah. You can separate fantasy from the reality. And just take it a step further. Some people enjoy a rape fantasy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they enjoy rape.
Lolly anime, like.
Yeah, there's another.
I don't.
Lolly anime is like where one of them's like looks like a younger person,
Gotcha.
and a lot of people
Okay.
have said that
Pedophilia.
it's condoning or pushing for pedophilia when really it's not the same thing.
Right.
And people can't separate it in their brains.
Yeah, that's fantasy from reality.
Yeah.
To me, all of it, none of it is any different than just some sort of role play, just some type of sexualized role play, whether it's dom stuff or sadism or any of that stuff. As long as it's all consensual between two adults, it's just some kind of form of role play.
Ashley is yelling from the kitchen with hands full of raw beef that people who conflate these fetishes fill her with rage.
I think Ashley has a meat fetish.
Hands full of raw meat, is that a fetish? Because I don't want to know.
If you can type it into a web browser and find a site for it, it's a thing.
Rule 34.
Everything is a thing.
Rule 34.
What number question are you?
9.
Oh, shit.
Do you think autism is underdiagnosed in adults?
Oh, very. Right. And that's mainly because we didn't really understand it till the late 2000s. Mm-hmm. We didn't really have much information on it. So anybody who became adult in the late, before or
millennials or younger.
For example, if you became an adult before like 2005, 2006, whatever, around there, 2010, whatever, then it might be a possibility that you didn't get diagnosed at all.
Right. Like at best, probably you have ADHD or ADD, but not really considered on the spectrum or whatever.
Yeah.
So, and on top of that, women are severely underdiagnosed.
Because it presents differently than the... Well,
see, here's the hypothesis on that. As generally in America, women are us autistics learn what do you call it? A behavior called masking.
Yeah.
Okay, which is a little bit more of a little bit more severe than just putting on your social mask.
Okay. I relate to this. I was just talking about this last week.
It's a little bit more severe than that. When people are out in public, they are acting, putting on a public mask, but they are still relatively themselves. They're just keeping back some parts. Mm-hmm. Most autistics put on a public mask, and they are almost a completely different person.
Right, because they're emulating everybody around them because, they know something's not the same.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm not even sure what is acceptable in a particular situation, so I'll just not do anything. So with women, they have figured out that women, y'all apparently grew up automatically masking. So it's much harder to diagnose women than it is guys.
because they're expected to act very different around people.
Yes,
than,
yes, you are.
It's
you
like
are,
it's like a survival trait, I guess.
Yeah.
you are expected to act a certain way.
starting from like I could let my son act in certain ways that it would never be acceptable for me to let my daughter act, and it was worse when I was little, I think, because times have changed.
But like younger, back then it was still boys will be boys.
Yeah.
But girls had to be a certain way. So girls are underdiagnosed unless they're more on a more severe side of autism. Like this past summer, I actually attended this autistic. It was like a week long. They called it a boot camp.
Like a retreat or summer camp.
No. It was actually teaching you how to act during a job interview.
Oh, okay.
And some how to act in public.
That's actually good. I'm glad that there is stuff like that. I think we need more stuff like that.
Yeah, and so, and out of that group, I was the only autistic guy. There was 4 other girls, and this one other guy that didn't have autism, but he had something very similar. So, the class was beneficial to him.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So, so there was 4 girls, 2 guys. I was the only autistic out of the 2 guys. The other 4 girls were autistic to some degree or another. One girl was actually, some of her symptoms were really bad. Like she can't hold tennis balls. Because the texture of the tennis balls.
She
I
has-
like how I can't fold socks because the texture of.
Or if I fold towels with my teeth, or I scratch my nails down your jeans.
No, then I'll start the screaming thing, because I can't.
It's sensory input.
I have really bad sensory issues.
Yeah. So I mean, so girls are now starting to get diagnosed, but it is much harder for a girl to be diagnosed than it is for a guy.
Because honestly, in my personal life, I've wondered a few times if I might be.
I think you are.
My mom thinks I am, and
I think you-
I had a psychologist suggest it to me once. I just never pursued it because so far I haven't felt the need.
Here's a question. I know it's not in any of your cards, right? How does OCD fit into that? Because you're very, very OCD. Is OCD is that just being on the spectrum and that's part of it, or is OCD a separate thing?
Real OCD or
I'm real.
Yeah,
Okay,
she's
you're actual.
she's very, very low on that. But she has minimal, but she has
I
legitimate
am
OCD.
functional, but it does impact my life in such a way that there are things I cannot do, or some days I can't.
Okay, because like
Especially with the compulsive thought, like I've got to wash
Yeah,
dishes a certain number of times. If I
yeah.
don't, I think my kids will die.
yeah, because like there are some.
Yeah, it's a
some
very
things-
overused term.
Yeah, it's
People are
not
just
just-
like, "Oh, I'm OCD about doing my
It's like,
laundry."
no-
Shut up. You're not
no,
really.
No, you're not. You're a perfectionist.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm not nitpicky. I can't do the other thing until I fulfill the ritualistic
Yeah,
task.
she gets stuck on certain tasks.
I'll get stuck in a repeating.
None of
loop
it is cleaning.
of all. Yeah, I wish some of it was cleaning.
And on top of that, most OCD is actually in the head itself, not actually actions.
Yeah, mine's a lot of it's very thought based and rituals that go on in my head. But yeah, no, I've tried medicating for it before, but it's never worked. But
Well, in when you're on the Zoloft, it's not as bad. Like regular antidepressants do help with it. It doesn't eliminate
or
it.
they
I've
give
noticed.
me more ticks.
Right? Yeah. Depending
Some
on
of
what
them
you're
have
taking.
added physical ticks that are
But
aggravating.
I'm curious. Do either of y'all know is that part of the autism spectrum? OCD is just a part of that, or is it a complete?
It actually could be the
I know they go hand in hand.
the,
But
the more science actually goes into autism, and we still have a lot to learn right now, the more complex it becomes, and the more vague the definition actually becomes. I think we're going to. I think they're going to get to a point where autism is going to hit a peak that umbrella is just about so much stuff that they need to break it down.
yeah.
Because, like I said earlier, in its the very vague the vague definition is the brain's just wired incorrectly with those volume knobs.
Right.
So that can encompass any portion of your brain, any portion whatsoever.
So knowing that this is a brain wiring problem and it's not a disease, what do you think about people that are trying to find a cure?
I know I'm on the minority here, and I'm actually okay with them. Like the Autism Speaks, for example, they're probably the more hated organization.
Yeah, because they want to fix it. That's
That, and then people yell about they're not using their money to help families directly. I'm like, you do realize it's a science research facility,
Yeah.
not a public help organization.
I kind of get that logic. It's the fault is not with the people that you're giving the money to. The fault is with you not researching what you're giving your money to beforehand.
I think a lot of people's aggravation with it, though, is they don't want their... my kid's not sick. They don't need to be cured, is the kind of
Right.
mantra.
Yeah, but
And I think I fall kind of more on that side of it.
and
For sure.
And Autism Speaks is, they have a focus on autism, but they're pretty much just a genetic research facility. That's really all they are. So whether you hate them or not, they're doing gene research that can lead to other fields.
Yeah.
They're also doing work on all the different portions of genetics. So even if you don't like them and you don't like that they're trying to find a cure, which if I can cure all of the negative stuff about autism and keep all the positive stuff, I would love it.
Well, and I think a lot of people that are against fixing it have high functioning kids as opposed to the ones that can't function at all.
Oh, and they over romanticize it. Oh, it's just a different way of thinking. No, it's not.
In our culture, it's just not. It's not feasible for it to work out for most people.
Well,
who are
I think
autistic.
when people think of autism, like he's talking about over romanticizing, when somebody that doesn't deal with people all the time, and here's the deal: your perspective, his perspective, Allie's perspective are all different because, like, you worked at MHMR and
CLC.
in CLC, Allie worked at CLC. You grew up with it, that sort of thing. Like, you're used to dealing with people at different levels of it. Like, so you see how high functioning people can be, but you also see
The tortures that low functioning people go through.
like where you're like, oh my God, like,
A CLC and MHMR are group home facilities, just for people.
yeah.
Oh, I get where you're going with that, but I know someone who would shoot that apostolos down right quick in a hurry because she also has dealt in the healthcare world. She's also a healthcare worker, or used to be anyway.
Well, what I was gonna say is I think the people that over romanticize it, they think of like the show Atypical or whatever, and they think everybody is like that, but they have never seen or actually been around somebody that's at the far end of the spectrum that like has
That
legitimate.
they're locked in their own heads, and
Yeah, like they're legitimately disabled. Like,
and they're abused because of it, and they can't do anything about it. And if I could,
yeah.
if we're talking about curing something, if we could cure those aspects of it, I don't see what the harm in that is.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's something that's going to be cured, but I do think that more research into it is a good thing because it's something that could be alleviated or better dealt with or improved, even if it's just we learn more about it so we can educate people that don't
improve society's
that
reaction
don't
to
have
it.
it, that they can deal with it better and make those people's lives better. I mean, wouldn't that also be the goal? Like, if people understood more about you and more how you function, that the world could just be more accommodating to what's going on with you. I mean, either outcome is still good.
Agreed.
I mean, it's paralyzed people. We may never figure out how to get paralyzed people to walk again, but if more people realize that, hey, this is a common thing, then make things more handicap accessible and stuff like that, so that just because they have a disability, they don't have to miss out on every single thing that's going on.
That's why you need the research money and the funding. And
Yeah. So
yeah, like there's this new one that they're essentially just like Autism Speaks, but they're a fairly new one, and they're going about it a slightly different way. It's this company called Spark,
Spark.
and what they're trying to do.
I haven't heard of this one.
Me either.
Yeah, they're fairly new.
I am going to put it in my phone so I can read it.
Yeah,
Tell us about Spark. It's not the energy drink my neighbor keeps trying to sell me, right?
not as far as I know.
Okay, God, they won't stop. Like every day, hey, you want to buy some Spark energy? No, I don't.
No. What they're doing is they're actually getting DNA samples from people. They're trying to get DNA samples from the autistic person and a non-autistic parent or relative,
Okay.
Okay, so they're wanting to look at like
and they're trying to compare.
like the genetic like how do you get from point A to point B? Like how did we get here? Besides vaccines.
I think you had the next.
Oh, I have number 11. Is number 11? Are we
'cause
good to
I
go?
have 13 and 14.
I don't understand this question, so I hope he does. How do you think the future of autism is going to be?
He's actually kind of already answered that, where he thinks it's going to end up being a more umbrella and it's going to be more common.
Yeah,
It's just going to be a more common thing.
No. Well, what I mean by that is I think the diagnosis itself is eventually going to get so vague that it's going to encompass anybody with a disability, with a brain disability.
Yeah.
And then from there, they're going to have to break it down.
I wonder if you think it's ever going to get so vague where autism isn't a thing. There's just a spectrum, like a big spectrum, and then there's like typical people are here, and then it's like how far.
Well, I mean, and
down
Allie
are you?
asks, are you ever worried about people over-diagnosing autism? Like, that it's going to lash back in the other way?
I think that will come with the vagueness.
Yeah.
Eventually. But if they can keep from being too vague about it, like right now, I think the technical diagnosis at the moment is too vague. But again, they're working on breaking it down right now. Because I cannot remember that 2011 study. I can't remember where it was from. I think that's particularly the future. Is just hopefully it gets more easily diagnosed, because you can't really diagnose it very easily before like age 5, because that's when the brain still has pretty much all its neurons.
Yeah.
And you really can't start diagnosing it until you start seeing the problems. Unless
it's to like extremes, like they're not acting like a normal 5-year-old, which overreacts to everything.
Well, I was going to say, unless the companies like Spark and Autism Speaks actually learn maybe some
Genetic marker.
some kind of genetic marker,
Yeah.
and every baby that's born, we can actually just take a genetic sample,
Yeah.
and mark out stuff like this is a possibility.
Yeah.
Right. Well, if you take it that far, like if you're actually finding genetic markers for things, then you are actually talking about a point to where you could find a cure or whatever with like gene therapy, because that's
Eugenics.
the ultimate cure. God.
Would you say it was a final cure or solution?
9.
What's the next question?
You have any advice for parents who think that their kids might be on the spectrum?
I would keep note on what is happening before and after a specific outbreak. Just keep notes on every little detail that you can do about the environment, about what happened right before it, how exactly the outburst or outbreak is happening.
The fit.
That's actually really good advice, because
Yeah.
I don't know a lot. I don't
Detail
know a lot
the
of
fit.
parents that take notes.
No, that's a good,
about their kids'
I never
behavior.
even thought about it. When Caitlin has her
Detail
fits.
the fit.
Yeah.
Don't just say a fit.
Okay.
Detail it.
Yeah,
what
like
exactly
such
is
and such
happening.
was happening. She threw a fit. We reacted to through the whole thing, and then after a certain period of time, you can go back through your notes, and if nothing else, you can identify triggers.
Yeah.
Triggers. The more details you have, the better a psychologist can look at it.
Right, yeah, because you can just hand that over to a doctor, and they can go, holy crap, thank you for doing most of my job for me. Now we can just go to this other, you can skip a lot of the, like, behavior observation sort of thing.
Well, I don't think it would skip that
Well,
that process.
I mean, but it gets you to a point.
But it would definitely make the foundation stronger.
Yeah.
I have this one friend I met in one of my groups. She has I forget if it's both her sons or one of her sons is autistic. He's like 10 or something like that. And so every once in a while I'll get a message from her asking about something. Based on my own experience, and on top of that, she knows that I'm a severe nerd and knowing various things about neurology. I researched this stuff into oblivion. In fact, I don't even. I may even go into a degree one day. Who knows?
Oh, that'd be cool.
I'm pretty sure at this point in time it wouldn't be that hard for me, since I already know a lot of stuff. But she'll message me and ask me, some things. Like I think the last question she asked me about was like a preference to board games. Because apparently he has some characteristics that I've told that I had when I was his age. So sometimes she would just ask me stuff as mundane as that.
Allie asked, do you feel like you were failed because you went undiagnosed for so long?
Well, I can't really blame anybody for it just because of the environment. I'm sure if I was more in a more typical household, I'm sure it might have been caught faster. But then again, at that point in time, even the school was just saying, he's just an oddball.
Yeah.
So given the time period, I don't think there was anything different that could have been, because I'm just high enough to be called just an oddball.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you said, the time period, I think even in a typical household during that time period with as high functioning as you are, I don't think it would have been caught then either.
I mean, let's say there is something up with me and I go to a psychologist and it turns out that I'm autistic. My parents never caught that, and I wouldn't have blamed them because I completely presented as everything that was going on went on in my own space, in my own head, or with my friends that they weren't seeing.
Right.
So what can they do based on that?
And on top of that, you're a woman, so you mastered masking.
Yeah. So here's the most hard-hitting question we have here, John. Do vaccines cause autism?
Were you vaccinated? Are you vaccinated?
That is our hard-hitting question for the night.
The vaccines cause I seriously can't even wrap my hand around people that still think that.
But are you vaccinated?
Well, yes.
Okay.
Well, there we go.
Point.
Love the people that conflate correlation with causation.
Yeah.
There's more autistic people and there's more vaccines. Therefore, vaccines. What?
Thanks, Jenny McCarthy. PhD.
Her and a man called Dr. Wakefield are responsible for this, and he did the study that showed
He was
that
defrauded.
I know he was
and
defrauded.
People still quote him.
But that
And
the
debunked.
MMR but yeah, he actually retracted all, and people still are quoting this jerk off to this very day. But you have the next question, Captain Chewing on Your Eyes.
But then again, people regurgitate stuff even older than that. There's people out there still regurgitating Reagan's welfare queen.
Oh yeah, they really are just all over Facebook. But her nails are done.
Didn't we have that
Yes,
argument the
we
other
just had
day?
that argument.
Just the other day.
She had food stamp card and a cell phone. Oh, fuck you.
Oh my God, a cell phone. They can get them for $20.
To which I replied, I'm on food stamps and I have a cell phone. Come at me.
I helped somebody pick up food from the food bank in their BMW, and that person got dirty looks. Are any of your chronic illnesses related to your autism?
Nobody really knows for sure, but there is a lot of correlation.
I know food allergies, I've heard, can correlate heavily with.
Yeah. Then again,
What?
First,
Yeah.
Yeah, in this.
There's actually
It's very rare. I just come up with new info. What? Please fill me in.
Autism, for some reason, seems to correlate with food issues. I
yeah,
don't.
a lot. Yeah, most people with autism have some kind of food allergy. Mm-hmm. I just happen to be heavily allergic to anything delicious.
Caitlin can't have nuts.
No, Caitlin's allergic to a couple different foods, yeah.
Boom.
I'm
Oh my
allergic to a
God,
bunch
so
of
many things just make sense now.
Ashton's brains are now all over the door over here.
Well, I have no food allergies.
So you're not autistic? No, I don't think it's a 100% thing. They're just more likely to
Correlation is causation.
have. Oh my
We
God,
just established this, and I've been vaccinated.
Oh no. It's the trifecta. You're screwed.
But then again, as we all know, that the more problems you have, the more it seems to correlate with other problems that you have.
Does
It's like a snowball.
now that you have the autism diagnosis, does it hinder the treatment for any of your other health issues, either with diagnosis or the actual treatment of it?
No. No, not really. I'm actually going to school online right now because I was actually diagnosed with autism. The Workforce Solutions is putting me through school and hoping they can find a job I can actually do. Or let me rephrase that, because the actual ability to do the job is different from the ability to
Yeah,
stay.
I think you have the physical and mental ability to
do your
do
job, yeah,
shit. You can probably do my job better than I can, but it's
I don't know
the
about that. I
environment.
mean, I've got a back problem. I can't stand longer than like 10 minutes.
But also the environment's loud and there's people talking and
my boss is an asshole.
I wouldn't be able to focus in those.
I avoid going to supermarkets during like 3 p.m. to like 8
Dude,
p.m.
I just stand outside and cry. And the lights there bother me in supermarkets.
And when and on the rare chance that I have to, I will have to stick in my headphones.
There's just so many people. And
We
it's
should
just,
go on a field trip after this for science.
dude.
or like go to a grocery store that isn't Walmart.
Yeah, like Albertsons and Cleburne is always dead.
Just to be fair, somebody that's not diagnosed with autism, I can hate Walmart too.
Yeah, but that's for different reasons. Than
It's
for completely
no,
different-
I think it's a lot of the same ones.
Well, yeah, but I
It's just
think
a horrible place
I
to
think
be.
you also have some sensory
Oh,
issues.
oh yeah, that also leads me into this.
Yeah.
I'm actually epileptic also. I keep
And
forgetting.
someone had just asked, it was actually Julie, had because her comments aren't working, had asked if epilepsy was related to autism.
Again, that is a that is a common correlation.
And I can imagine, like, that one makes more sense to me than the food allergy thing, because that's a brain
thing, yeah.
synapses sort of.
I mean, I go into a busy Walmart and there's a high chance of me going into a seizure.
Yeah, with you, it's a seizure. Me, it's just a panic attack.
God, I'm glad I haven't had one of those in a really long time.
Yeah, so I avoid all these situations that can cause my.
Reminds me, I need to take my Lexapro. Wait, I've been drinking.
Just take your Lexapro anyway. One drink isn't gonna. People are way crazy about that, not drinking on antidepressant stuff. But
I find it enjoyable.
I think avoiding the situation is my response to these things too. Like, I can't do the dishes because I've got to do it in rotations of 39. So I'm just not going to do the dishes. If there's someone else in the house that can do it where they don't have to wash every plate 39 times, it's probably better for them to do it.
I have a
just saying.
dishwasher.
That does not work for me.
See it as a non-problem, but okay.
Busy. What if you just turn the dishwasher on 39 times?
You're fired. That's a hell of a water bill.
Yeah.
Stay away from my dishes.
So what are the advantages of having autism? Do you see any advantages to this?
Autistic people are less likely to be Republican.
He gets that free speed pass at Six Flags.
Oh God, Six Flags! I hate Six Flags.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. Last time I went to Six Flags, I just ended up sitting with my back against a wall, just rocking with my head in my hands. And that's how my last Six Flags trip turned out.
I'm neurotypical. I don't like Six Flags. I'm like, screw this.
I love roller coasters. I fucking hate people.
And,
Just build one in the backyard.
And I used to be able to go to these, public events like a con or something like that. The last time I went to a con was 2012.
I like Dragon Con. They have a system for people with autism or social anxiety disorders. If you go to the disability service, they hand out a card. And it's a color-coded card. So if you're like autistic and you're trapped inside a crowd, you hold up the card and the people will come take you to somewhere else.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a really
I
nice...
should have applied for those.
Yeah,
I ruined our
told you-
entire vacation.
I told you
because
about it before we went.
I had a day-long social anxiety attack. Normally, here's the deal. Like, it's different in different places. And normally huge crowds like that, actually, like, once you get past a certain point, like concerts and stuff like that, it doesn't bother me, like, at all. Like, I don't have problems with it. I didn't foresee that actually being a problem. I think what it was is there was too much up and down because we would go from periods of being
peaceful.
quiet and then we would be in a crowd. So my brain was kind of changing modes constantly.
Yeah.
And I think I just had a bad freaking mood swing.
I think it's because so many non-neurotypical people tend to be nerds that they've come up with this system at DragonCon where you hold up a card and they come in, they take you, they ask you what you need. Like, what do you need from disability services? Do you need us to take you somewhere, outside of the crowd? Do you need to go to a certain room? Do you need us to find a specific person for you? That sort of thing, which I thought was really awesome, especially as someone who has trouble in those situations. But then again, you get people like Kristen who can't even go up to disability services and talk to them because her anxiety is so bad.
And see, I like the very first time I got anything for my depression and anxiety, I had anxiety about talking to the doctor about my anxiety.
Yeah.
Like I had to have a full on breakdown, like to a pretty bad point in my life before I could even do anything about it. And they were just like, okay, here's pills, please
And
don't.
that's why our show wants to do the advocate thing. So
Yeah.
people who can't advocate for themselves, so someone else can help you do that.
Yeah, and then sometimes I have to. I want to communicate a different way. Like I have a very bad anxiety about texting people when I know they're asleep. If I know you're asleep, I am probably not going to text you, unless I know you just don't care.
I'm always afraid I'll wake them up.
Like, I have anxiety about waking my mother up. I mean, she wakes up in a bad mood. I'm on edge all day. So I put up this chalkboard on my door, and so I could write messages instead of texting her because I know she doesn't turn her phone on silent ever. And it's always on full volume.
Ah.
I have a question about the advocacy thing. Do you think having, did you have anxiety about talking to the doctor about the stuff going on for you? Would an advocate have helped you in that situation? Would that have been something that you would have wanted?
With a doctor, not really. I don't have any anxiety about doctors. I have anxiety towards authority figures.
Right. Like like more everyday sort of situations. I mean, is it helpful to have somebody that kind of like speaks your language and can kind of translate to other people that you might have a hard time communicating with or something?
That would probably help sometimes. I can't really think of anything because I avoid situations like that.
Yeah, you're so high fun. Like you're so. I mean, you're.
I seem high functioning because I'm comfortable around y'all.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know enough to only put yourself in those situations unless you absolutely can't help it. Like,
Right.
And I think that's a really good method of like self-help there. But like if you know you're going to be in a situation that's like outside of that comfort zone, do you have somebody that helps you with stuff like that? You're like, oh, I'm gonna take this friend because I'm comfortable with them, and they're able to help me navigate these like social situations that you can't normally do on your own.
I mean, I do have a few friends that, I mean, I don't really go out all that often. So like when I do, the few friends that I am around, they know about my situations. So so a couple of them, if they realize that I'm not really wanting to do, I'm having anxiety to do something, then they might go do it for me.
Right? Yeah. They're kind of your backup. They advocate for you.
Yeah, like Steven makes my phone calls for me to professional type people.
Oh, I hate phone calls.
Yeah, they're the worst.
No, well, mine is I also have a sensitivity with hearing with higher pitched noises, and a phone is actually quite high pitched.
Yeah, it's like all treble. I can't hear anybody when I'm talking on the phone, like what they're saying. It's why I don't like people calling me.
So yeah, I prefer a text message or something. And then I have a friend who's the exact opposite. He hates he hates texting and prefers calling.
Oh God.
So like,
Allie.
So I will see his call from Messenger, because that's the only way we have contact is Facebook. If Facebook went down, we'd have trouble. So like I'll reject the call.
Yeah.
And then ask what's up on text.
Well, we're at about our time limit, so if anyone has anything else to say, any wrap up questions.
I want to see the new Pokemon movie.
Okay, thank you, Brad.
There's a new one.
It's Detective Pokemon with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, that's real. I thought that was just a.
No, that's
a thing.
a thing.
It's happening. It's Deadpool 3, The Great Mouse Detective.
I thought it was just a meme.
Nope, it's a thing. Yes, I know you hate texting, Allie.
I found out memes can be videos yesterday.
Yeah, he didn't know that memes could be, because I was talking about that badger, mushroom, snake one, and I was like, it's a meme, and he was like, it's a YouTube video. I was like, it's a meme. I had to Google it and prove it to him, and I was right. And
No, you
were
weren't.
wrong.
No.
Oh so if no one else has anything else to say, I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh yeah,
it was really informative and.
Oh hey, you're a comic book nerd, aren't you?
I mean, I don't read comics directly, but I do like reading backstories and stuff like that online.
How do you feel about Stan Lee?
Damn it, Thanos.
Okay. Thank everyone for watching, and y'all have a good night.